And we're live.
We're back, guys. But were we ever really here to begin with? There was a little bit of a false start there, but you know what? We couldn't have done it without Andy. And now Andy Plant is with us, so we're very happy to have him with us here.
Let's
He's
go.
he is stoked. He's got ideas. He's got knowledge that will blow your mind whole. And we're excited to get right back into it, aren't we, Jer?
Andy is officially the third
The third wheel.
dumpweed. The third
Oh
dumpweed.
yeah. The third
And
weed.
the third weed. We've had 30 years almost of being three weeds, so I don't know why we didn't incorporate him in the first place, but we've done stupider things, like say stupider.
Way stupider.
Anyways,
Welcome to the Dumpweed Diaries.
Welcome.
we're glad you stuck with us over the last year when we did absolutely nothing, but we're really hoping to have more consistent episodes out, especially with Andy on board.
It
So
just took that long to get this episode ready.
exactly. We're all about the quality here, for sure. But we are going to pick up, I think, right where we left off in the last episode. So, we were talking about late 90s, some of the bands that really got us into, the musical taste that we have today, right? We were talking about Blink, we were talking about Green Day, those huge pop punk bands. And now we're going to transition into the year 2000.
The new millennium. Y2K.
What? Y2K.
Y2K. Was it the new millennium? Is the new millennium not 2001?
We all called it the new millennium. Y2K.
Okay, we'll call it that too.
What did Silverchair call it?
I don't know.
I think they called it the year 2000, didn't they?
They did. They
There we
did.
go. There we go. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Andy's like, I don't know.
Who listens to Silverchair anyway?
You.
That's right. They're fantastic.
Andy, turn up the mic just a little bit. Sorry.
God. 90%. All right. 90%.
Beauty.
All right.
Steve. Year 2000. Paint the picture. What's going on?
So, this is a little bit of a transition period. I'm going to nerd out for about 30 seconds, so just stay with me here, please. So, we just had in the United States 2 terms of Bill Clinton, who is a Democrat. And when the Democrats are in power, it's funny, the music that's coming out is typically very, very happy, very positive, very uplifting. So we just lived through this period of a lot of pop punk. We're listening to the Backstreet Boys, the Spice Girls. Everything is happy. Old Billy is in the Oval Office, is getting blowies under the desk. It's a great time to be alive. And now we come into 2000. So there's an election called. Old old Bushy comes into power.
W.
W. Bush comes into power a year later, and things are starting to get a little darker, but we still have some great pop punk albums, some great happy, balls to the wall pop punk albums that came out in 2000. And there were some great titles there. So Andy, you're the new guy. Get us started. What do you think was your favorite
So,
2000s pop punk album?
what like you said, a landmark year. 2000, we got Newfound Glory, Gob, Good Charlotte, Green Day, AFI, Sum 41, Offspring, all putting out massive albums. Just top of the charts. That was the. I want to say it was the peak, but the peak hadn't hit yet, so we were almost there. I'm gonna have to say, for 2000, it was NFG.
What album? What album was that?
That was self-titled.
Self-titled.
Their second album.
You know what the first song of NFG I ever heard was? Guess.
Hit or miss.
Dress to Kill.
Deep Cut. It was a cover.
It's a
of
cover. My heart will go on.
First song I ever heard.
That's a Harry special.
Yeah, actually, it was either Harry or it was.
It was definitely Harry, I bet.
Yeah, it was in my basement, and it was. I was like, what is this? It was just. It was punchy. It was catchy. It was the best. And
Was
that's,
that off of an album of?
I don't.
There was a compilation of a lot of those
They
pop
had,
goes pop
Wasn't
or
it
something
from-
like that.
Yeah, Jared, it was From Your Screen to Your Stereo.
Correct. Andy,
That
you and I
was,
saw their anniversary tour pre-pandemic.
Man. Yeah, 2019.
That's when we. Yep. Yep. Because I think they did a volume 2.
Yeah, and that was also actually really good too. That came out around COVID time.
20 late 2019,
Yeah, that was really good. But
November 2019, I think it was.
yeah, and I was exposed to this music from Graham, from my older brother. He was the one that because his buddies were showing him music too. So that's where I got introduced to Gob, Newfound Glory, Green Day. Jerry, you like this story? Remember when we had a paper route?
Yes, I do.
You guys even talked about this on the first episode, the Arab Banner.
Shout out Newmarket Air Banner. So are they still a thing?
Steve's muted.
I am not saying a single thing. I'm just listening intently to your story. Just continue on.
We used to have our pump up songs. We used to burn CDs during our paper route, and you would have loved this playlist. It was Gob, Newfound Glory, Green Day, Treble Charger, and Creed. We had to throw a Creed song on there. And
Andy
that's
playing
how we got-
special.
That's it.
Creed. Was that a 2000 release?
99.
Was it Human?
Was 99. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So Graham showed me a lot of bands, and that's how. And then when I met you guys, when I started hanging out with you guys more, that's how it came up. And then we just started burning CDs constantly.
I have an entire booklet.
Yeah.
By booklet, I mean like 4 wide of just burned CDs.
And
with-
honorable mention to Steve. Steve, to this day, your burn CD collection just blows my mind.
I had an amazing collection.
This thing.
That's right.
Steve was one of the first guys I knew with a CD burner. I remember actually writing out songs on a piece of paper just to age ourselves here a little bit and bring it to Steve's house to burn. And it used to take like 2 hours.
And we had to rip the CDs too in a lot of cases,
Yeah.
right? You got to have
Yeah.
the CD. 2000, 2001, 2002, that was kind of the start of the decline of the CD era. That's when you're getting into the Napsters and the Kazas of the world, right?
Morpheus.
Well, what Morpheus.
Then the LimeWire. I used the LimeWire for years.
Yeah,
The
Years.
virus machine.
I used that for a long time. That was
It still exists. It still exists. Yeah. But the Napster, I remember downloading, you guys remember the Jerky Boys?
Oh God, yeah, prank calls.
Come,
Yes.
you come on my property and kick my dog?
Kick my dog.
But we just played that
Yeah,
at our family's Thanksgiving somewhere.
Oh man, Kerpow.
We had to show somebody. that. I don't know
Kerpow.
if we actually ended up playing it, but we were all laughing about that the other day. And you know what? To bring it full circle, back to Bill Clinton. Remember, if you got like a corrupted file, it would be some idiot in his voice saying, I did not have sexual relations with that woman. And you just waited like 30 minutes to download this fucking song, and then you have Bill Clinton saying he didn't have sex with a woman. You have to delete it and start all over again. Find another file.
You know what?
Oh man,
Go ahead, Annie.
I've got a story about that, but it may have to wait till another day.
Fair
We
enough.
have lots of time.
What I was gonna,
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna piggyback off of Steve's I guess political element there is. Do you guys remember the compilation albums Rock Against Bush?
Yes.
Do you remember those?
Yep.
If you take a look at the bands that wrote and participated on those albums, it is like everything that came out in that time. It was like brand new bands, and they were just so against Bush at the time. They were so okay, even from a business standpoint, to just jump on something so political like that so quickly. I thought it was, mind you, I mean, we're talking Rise Against, the Bouncing Souls, Green Day, very political bands.
Song on there too.
Did they really?
Yeah.
Yeah, very like and you know what? Some's not typically very political either,
No,
but those other ones like Bouncing Souls, No Effects, they're all very political.
Very political. Yeah.
We're kind of getting that today in another way. We don't have the CDs anymore, but we're getting that with the bands that are jumping on board and getting pissed off with Trump for playing their music at the rallies. That's a huge thing right now. And it's such a gray area because, Jerry, you know about SoCan here in Canada and stuff like that. You taught me about that. So these venues that Trump is
still a member
at, there you go. Good for you. These venues that Trump is speaking at are licensed through the American version of that. So theoretically and legally, they can play any music they want, basically, right?
Yeah.
Now these musicians are jumping on board with cease and desist orders, telling them, Trump, we don't want you playing our music. So it's kind of a gray area right now. Probably would have been easier. I know, right? Would have been easier if they could just all get together and put out a CD if someone would buy it.
Can't we all just get along? No, it's not possible.
I was gonna say, you guys know, in that era, this was when you were seeing these songs on movie soundtracks, video games, TV shows. It was just such a commercial, popular time for this genre, this era of music. It was just, it was everywhere.
The American Pie 2 soundtrack.
Yep. But that soundtrack was a banger, though. All those teen movies, all those teen movies, all those comedy rom-coms.
Yeah.
They had all these bands were on those soundtracks, and that's how these bands kind of push through the mainstream, right? Through these big exposures.
Yeah, there was a lot of one-hit wonders then too.
Yep. American Hi-Fi.
I think they had like 2 hits, but that's about it though.
Flavor of the Week.
That was a great song.
That was a great song.
Still a good song.
And from the Tony Hawk, we got actually Goldfinger put out an album, 2000,
Unreal.
Stomping Ground. Superman, which was on the Tony Hawk soundtrack. It wasn't on that album, but they followed that up, and I think that album did fairly well just because of the notoriety they got from that video game. Like, you think of Tony Hawk Pro Skater, you're thinking of Superman for sure. And
that's the only song I think of.
Yep.
There you go. And that album, had Spokesman on it. It had 99 Red Balloons on it, and Open Your Eyes. Huge hits for that band.
Great album.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Steve, who wrote 99 Red Balloons?
Some German chick.
That's it. Great.
I don't know who, but I knew it was German.
What was it? Nina? Or Nina or something like that?
I think you're making this up right now.
Let me Google it.
While Andy Googles that, Jared, who
Nina,
were you
it was
listening
Nina.
to?
It was Nina.
Nina.
Nena.
I still think you just made that up.
All right, Jared, what is your year 2000s album?
Okay. I don't know if you guys will agree with this. And this is going to open up a little bit of a discussion here. I think we can probably roll with that. Is Blink live album.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. I felt like everyone had that album. It was the first time I had ever seen a paper sleeve for a compact disc. First of all.
That's what I remember the most about it is that.
The paper sleeve. Yeah. The paper sleeve booklet. Steve, you and I have said this for decades of how confident of a move it was for that band to come out with a live album after a successful LP.
Ballsy.
Yeah, their earlier stuff is great, but it wasn't even close to Enema of the State.
Dude Ranch was the closest, but it wasn't even close to Enema.
Right.
Enema, I believe, was multi-platinum.
And that live album, for the most part, it was just Enema of the State with some of their older stuff thrown in, right?
Yep.
they had, I think Man Overboard was on that. Just
But it
throwing
wasn't
at the end,
alive though. It wasn't alive.
no,
It was a new
but
track.
but that's the only new track that was on that album, the Mark, Tom, and Travis show.
That that song actually, which is crazy because it's one of my favorite Blink songs. That song was cut from Enema of the State. It was written for the album, but was cut. And then I guess they decided to throw it on the live album in between, at the end of the live concert and before the bullshit banter that they had at the end of that album. But yeah,
Just at the end of that album. Half
the
the
banter
album
there was
is bullshit banter.
right, but the end of it was there was no music. It was just all stupid banter. But yeah, like that album was essentially Enema of the State mixed with some stuff from Dude Ranch, and probably they threw in Carousel there.
Yeah.
Clearly, somebody told them how funny they thought their live show was, and how that was going to be a selling feature for them, because it worked, because it was hilarious.
It was.
I mean,
It absolutely was a selling feature for them.
That banter was. It became one of their trademarks, right? That was it.
It still is. I mean, even now, Tom still does it. It's not like. I mean, obviously, those guys have been playing together for decades, but it's not. The chemistry doesn't seem the same as it was when they were in their 20s. As they are now. Like Tom still tries and he's still funny and everyone knows Tom DeLonge, but it's not as, it doesn't catch as well as it did in the 90s.
Jared, we saw them on their most recent tour.
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah. And they're phenomenal. And they took a lot of flack now for using a little bit of pitch correction and auto-tune in their live performance. Yeah. And when I say auto-tune, I don't mean the T-Pain auto-tune. I just mean a little bit of pitch correction, because I mean, Tom's been known for terrible vocals live, but his banter and just Blink-182 as a band kind of makes up for that. But yeah, they took a lot of flack recently for using that pitch correction in their live show.
Was that just Tom, or was that Mark as well, do you think?
It's probably Mark, but I noticed it more with Tom because I'm used to Tom not hitting those, being a little out of key, to put it lightly.
You know what's interesting is I've been thinking about this a lot, as a lot of these bands from when we were growing up are coming back and getting back together and going on tour again. And I think about going to shows with my dad, like, Jared, you and me were both at the Eagles show with our dad. I think it was like 2008 or something like that. Incredible. I don't think a lot of these bands are going to be able to tour that long.
No.
Because of the energy that's required, because of the strain on the vocal cords with the vocal performances that you need to, provide in these songs. It's just not going to be possible. So I think it's just natural that, more bands are going to have to rely on technology to, make the shows good enough for their audience and what they expect, right? And I think they've got a short shelf life. They just do.
They do.
Yeah. How many acts are willing to embrace all that technology and keep it all going?
Yeah, see, here's an example here. No Effects. They just finished, I believe they just finished their final tour. Yep. And it was because Fat Mike wanted nothing to do with that technology. And yeah, he just wanted to finish how they started. Mid late 80s. I believe they started. It might have been like 86 or something like that. That's quite the run. Yeah. That's quite the run they had. And to sing like he has, and he still sounds exactly like he did in the 90s, is incredible. But you know what? You got to respect him and everything he's done with Fat Records and everything like that to just say, listen, we're not as good anymore as we used to be. And that's not how we want to be remembered. Let's just call it quits now after fucking 30 plus years.
Yeah. I think that's also the direction that Sum 41 is currently going to.
Yeah, I'm to be honest, I'm surprised Derek's vocal cords have lasted as long as they have with the way he sings.
Yep.
Well, and if you think about, bands that come out a little bit later than we're talking about now with the screaming in it, like Alexis on Fire, like how long is that guy going to keep going for? Like that, I can't believe he's still going. It's
And
ridiculous.
they're still so good.
And they're still solid.
Yeah. Every
They're
time I've
still
seen them,
solid.
yeah.
Well, that's why we got to get out and see these bands right now as they're coming around. Because I was just at All Your Friends Fest.
Yeah.
And, I was thinking like some bands are going to be great, some bands are going to be eh. Every band sounded phenomenal.
Really?
And obviously a lot of that is sound technology has come so far from when we were younger. But the other thing is, you guys have talked about when you've gone to shows recently, these bands are just so tight at this stage, right? They have it down. They are
Yes.
incredible together.
Especially the bands that haven't had a huge turnover with supporting musicians. The bands that have stayed together over these decades are so tight. Even the bands that I never really used to listen to, if I hear them now or see them live, I'm just impressed. The chemistry, the ability to just, I don't know, they just the vibe and the way they just jive together is just incredible.
So these are like 4-piece, 5-piece bands. These
Yeah.
are just guitar, bass, drums, vocals.
Yeah.
Maybe a keyboardist, but that's it.
What I have noticed maybe over the last 10 years is bands that we all grew up listening. Like, I mean, I'll give you an example here. All Time Low, um, even Newfound Glory, they have side stage backing vocals. That has always been a thing, but not for pop punk bands. I know All Time Low implemented that maybe 10 years ago. I saw them, and they just have people playing instruments side stage. I know All Time Low, they often have a third guitar player side stage playing riffs and harmonizing musically and vocally. And then Annie, when we saw Newfound Glory, they had the lead singer of Yellow Card was their second guitarist. He wasn't jumping around the stage. He stood in one spot, but he was there performing that second guitar track live.
That's right.
So what would you guys prefer? Like, for me, I don't really care who is on stage, who's backstage. I like to see live music, and as long as the influential members of the band are there in some
Yes.
capacity, I'm good with that. I'm
Me too.
perfectly fine seeing a bunch of amazing session musicians just play the shit out of a song. Me and Andy went to ELO a few weeks ago. They had a musical director on stage. They had so many people on stage. There was strings and 2 keyboards, a full piano, 3 guitars. Sounded incredible. I don't care who those people are. Get me the best sound possible. That's my philosophy.
Do you guys like a lot of improvisation when you see a band live, or do you like them to stick to like the studio track?
Within reason.
I've always wondered this about you guys. Like because for example with Blink, you know how Tom tends to stray from, he tries to overdo his vocals sometimes and kind of try sing differently, and
I'm okay. I mean, I'm a little more lenient towards that because I know he like in his 50s now, he's probably struggling a little bit to hit those notes. I'm not opposed to it. I understand all of that. In terms of vocals and guitar, I'm a little more of a stickler on it sounded like the original track. However, when it comes to drumming, a great example of this would be Travis slowing things down or making it heavier in parts of the songs that
adding fills.
yeah. I'm all for that, specifically live. I think that's incredible, and I'll hear Travis do a different fill and be like, "Oh man, like that's it." Yeah.
Yeah. Steve, what about you?
Yeah, I think I'm the same way. It just kind of depends on the band. Like, if we're just to kind of
if you got more of a jam band, then
yeah.
Shout out Fish.
No, let's not do that ever again, ever, ever.
But these bands we're talking about are these are really like they put out catchy verse, chorus, interlude, like outro.
I think it depends on can you do it. See, one of the things about Travis is he can do whatever the fuck he wants. Like Travis, I would argue, is one of, if not the best living drummer right now. And I know the metalheads always get pissed at me because of that, even though they're not around anymore. But you know what? Like,
Who do they counter with? Who would they counter with?
I don't know, that guy from Dream Theater
Mike,
and the guy from Tool, and it's always that. It's like
They are incredible percussionists, though.
Of course they are. They're incredible. But and you know what? I'm sure if what's his face from Tool, I can't think of his name right now. I don't listen to Tool that much, but I know the guy. Like if he went and played Blink, I'm sure he'd play it great. I'm sure it'd sound incredible. But there's more to it than being, impeccable technically. There's feel to it. There's bringing in different genres. I like Travis because he's got that jazz background, and you can hear that. That's why Stuart Copeland of the Police is great. Like he's playing rock, but he's also got ska. He brings in, that jazz element as well. You bring in so much, and if you have so much to draw from, what you can do is incredible. So that's why they're great. I find the metal drummers are very rigid and regimented in what they do. That's why I think John Bonham's the best of all time, because he did that. That's why I think Travis is great. So Travis, to Jared's point, can do whatever he wants, and it's going to sound fantastic. But if you have Jimmy and like the opening band who has 2 hits trying to improvise on stage, fuck off. I don't care.
I agree.
Song, right?
I agree.
That's my take.
I think you also need to earn that right to start mucking around. I don't know. Maybe this is coming from a really ignorant standpoint, but I don't know. If I'm going to see a band I'm seeing for the first time live that's like fairly new, I want to hear their tracks. My example again with Blink, I've heard those songs thousands of times. You want to mix it up a little bit, I'm all for it.
Yeah, fully agree. Travis's drum solo from that 2004 tour, their self-titled tour we saw, probably the best drum solo I've ever seen.
When he popped up into the middle of the crowd?
Just going to put that out there.
Yep.
It just stays with you.
Yep.
Didn't you see a Neil Peart drum solo with us?
I did.
Was it better than the Neil Peart drum solo?
Well, it's like you're saying. It's just different. It's just it's the experience. It's just but still obviously one of Canada's best, the world's best drummers. So
salute Neil Peart. R.I.P.
R.I.P.
All right, I'm gonna go with my album. Switch gears a little bit here. So
what year are we going back to, Steve?
We're still in 2000 here.
Okay,
we're gonna migrate a little bit, maybe in a minute here. But we talked about a couple of these albums before, but I think my favorite of the 2000s albums is gonna be Conspiracy of One, The Offspring. And we kind of talked about that in our promos that we did the other day. That album front to back is just incredible. It's almost as good as Hanson's Middle of Nowhere for that. Great album. You got to go back to that if you haven't. 1997. It's a little farther back, but
I'd rather listen to Americana.
yes, also fantastic. Almost as good as Middle of Nowhere. But anyway. This was kind of this was my first Offspring album. I think, Jer, you had Americana.
Yeah, 1997.
Yeah, and then I got Conspiracy of One. That was my first album with an American Prankster on it. And
Original Prankster?
fuck, can we cut that?
No, but that's fine.
Sorry, I was thinking about Americana.
I know. It's all right.
Original Pranksters on it. That was a massive track. Everyone was singing that at school. It was hilarious. Great music video, as they always normally do. They have some great videos to go along with their songs. And
Garrett J introduced that album to me.
Garrett was the connoisseur of some of the greatest albums of our generation. Shout out Garrett.
Shout out Garrett, Offspring, and Sublime.
Oh, yeah. And he's a big Zepp guy, which I love.
Big Zepp guy. Yep.
Big Zepp guy. Love that. That was my biggest album of the 2000, I'd say, other than Mark, Tom, and Travis show. That one is just hilarious. To go back to that again, have you guys listened to that recently at all?
I have not. I was going through my albums not too long ago, and I have two copies. I don't know where I got the second one from, but I have two.
Not in the last 5 years, I would say. But
Just make
it's,
sure you play it with headphones on, is what I'm saying, because some of that does not translate well to the year 2025.
No, it doesn't at all.
Holy. So I think that's 2000. Now, 2001 we're going to get to here. And this is kind of where the transition starts to happen. So January 20th, big transition here. January 20th, old Bushy comes into power. People aren't upset yet. They will be. He's going to start a couple wars. He's going to, there's going to be something that happens in 9 months after that. And it's, a generational event for us. I think we all remember where it happened and where we were.
When you transition from a Republican to a Democrat, what are you seeing on the music scape?
So when you're going, Democrats are typically seen as the more progressive party, right? There's a lot more optimism. People are happier. It kind of seems stupid to write serious music when everything is going very well. And I mean, to digress here, Clinton was awful for the black community. He started that war on drugs. Well, Reagan started it. Clinton really put it into power, and for the black community when he was in power, that was an awful time. And that's when you get all that great music from out west and from New York. You get Biggie, you get Eazy-E, you get Dre. We could go talk about that for like 10 episodes. Right?
You're damn right we could.
Yeah. You get all that stuff, but what we're talking about is coming from. This was the white suburban communities, and for them this was a great time. So Bush comes in, Republicans are kind of seen as not as optimistic. Not Trump is a whole other beast depending on what you think about him, or depending on your outlook about what's going to happen. But for the most part, Republicans come in and things seem a little bit less optimistic. People are a little bit more conservative, and people start to feel a little bit more oppressed, right? And that's where you get some of this more angry, more emotional music. So 80s, you have grunge coming out, kind of getting rid of that stupid hair metal phase. And then, which was great. I love me some hair metal.
Was it though?
It was.
There's a couple
Yeah.
songs in there.
Yeah. But now we're coming to the end of this optimistic period. We just got through 2000. The world didn't blow up, and now we're kind of settling into a Bush era, and then we're about to have the worst attack on American soil in history, and things got really serious after that. It was not an optimistic time. Everyone was worried that they were going to be attacked. What's going to happen next? And, in the years following 2001, you definitely hear about that, and you hear that in the music. It definitely gets serious. But
lots of censorship, too, in the music, too, and music
yeah.
videos and imagery that you see, yeah.
Like, Jerry, you were telling me about, our resident Blink expert there, Stay Together for the Kids in a music video.
Their original music video depicted a kind of a broken down house with some demolition going on, and after filming the entire thing, they realized that the images in the music video looked awfully a lot like the images they were seeing on TV and the news from the 9/11 attacks, which is why they refilmed the entire music video to take place kind of outside of it, like an abandoned mansion, just to kind of get rid of those images. Another piece to that is Jimmy Eat World's album Bleed American. They actually ended up changing their name. I can't tell you what they changed it to, but they changed it from Bleed American, obviously for obvious reasons during that time.
Well, that was actually the album that I was going to talk about from the 2001. That's probably my favorite. And I go around saying I think this is one of the most underrated albums possibly of all time.
You love Jimmy Eat World. I think you were the one that...
So do I.
So do I. Great
And you know what? They came out with the middle. It was a great song. I love that song. It's not even close to my favorite song on that album at all.
What's your favorite song on that album?
You know, I would have to say a praise chorus, I think.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
it, but that whole album is absolutely fantastic from start to finish. Great vocals, and what I kind of like about it and how it relates to this period is it's definitely a little bit more serious. It's definitely got pop. It's definitely happy for the most part, but it's definitely got a little bit of emotion in it as well, and that kind of leads us into some of the stuff we started listening to later on for sure. So that's my album 2001 that I really love.
I actually 2001 I think I liked the releases in '01 more so than 2000.
I think I'm with you on that one. Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
I've got a number one and I've got an honorable mention. I am gonna throw despite my interest in Blink, I'm gonna throw out Take Off Your Pants and Jacket album as an honorable mention, and I'm going to put in Your Favorite Weapon by Brand New is my favorite album that came out in 2001. That I don't know what it is to this day. That album is still top 3 of my favorites of all music. I had never heard anything like that at the time. It was Jesse Lacey's way of really describing situations and scenes in his lyrics, but yet that album was still very poppy musically. It was a very pop punk type of album, but the lyrics were so dark, and I thought that was an interesting twist considering the 2099 pop punk, the Sum 41 and the NFG. It was just so happy. It was so happy. But yeah, the lyrical and musical combination on Your Favorite Weapon album was something I had never seen before, never heard before, and that today, still to today, is one of my favorite albums ever.
And Steve actually has a great theory for the lyrical content as brand new albums progress. Don't you, Steve? What's your theory?
Yeah,
Again?
I always just thought it seemed like, I don't know what it was, but it's almost like he had a girlfriend and they broke up, the love of his life, and he just never got any better.
And every album
And
gets
he just
Darker
keeps
and
getting
darker
worse.
and darker.
Yeah, because you know what? You've always told me that that's your favorite album by Brand New. Mine's
Yep.
the next one.
Deja Entendu.
That's one of my favorite
Yep.
albums of all time. And
Yep.
It's just incredible to me, and it's a lot darker than Your Favorite Weapon, that's for sure. And that's,
Extremely.
if you Brand New, they had, hit wise, they didn't have a ton of hits. They probably just had the one or two that the average person would know about if you weren't interested in the genre, right?
Yeah.
Like they had
Go ahead, Steve. I was
Sick Transit Glory Fades, right?
yes, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, but if you haven't already, Brand New is a trip to go from start to finish, and it's incredible. And I kind of feel guilty plugging them because obviously Jesse Lacey, if you're not familiar, has done some awful things, and it's a shame. So I'm trying to separate the art from the artist in this case, and there are other members of that band who deserve credit as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love Brand New for sure. That's a great choice.
Yeah.
Andy, what was it for you?
I'm gonna go with some CanCon. I'm gonna say all killer, no filler.
Oh yeah.
That's it. I had actually liked Sum 41 from Half Hour of Power. My brother had brought it home one day on CD, and it was just the soundtrack in our basement all day long, and then it was so good. And then 2001, All Killer No Filler comes out, and it's just those songs are so upbeat and happy and just relatable to kids in the suburbs, especially being in Canada. Being down the road, Newmarket from Ajax is not that far.
No.
So coming out of Ajax, these guys are blowing up and singing about stuff that we do all the time. They're singing about, and it's just they had so many different. influences in their music too. They were throwing hip hop into their songs. They were throwing metal into their songs.
Yep.
It was punk. It was everything. And
It was something that wasn't on the market at the time either.
that's right.
At least not to my knowledge. In 2001, I mean, my access to music wasn't like it is now. It was whatever I saw on Much Music. Right? I never had MTV or TRL or anything like that.
That's right.
We had Much Music and whatever I guess people at school were listening to. Obviously, not to sidetrack here, but a lot of those compilation albums introduced me to a lot of artists, like the Much Dance and the Now One, Now Two, the Big Shiny Tunes was a big one too. But even back to your Sum 41, Andy, that not like it at the risk of sounding super cheesy here, it really is all killer no filler. That album front to back is a hit after hit.
I'm glad you said it because I was going to say it if you did.
If you read Derek's autobiography he put out recently, he actually talks about how they came up with that name. They couldn't come up with a name, and I believe Jerry Finn produced that album as well.
You're damn right. We need to do. I could get sidetracked into Jerry Finn's career, but we need to do another episode on him and the stuff that he's done. Same with John Feldman.
Yeah. So they were in the room, and they were like, "Shit! Like, we need an album. Like, our album comes out in like a month. Like, what's our album title gonna be?" And then one of them just blurted it out. How about All Killer No Filler? And that's how they got the name.
It's such a good album.
And then my honorable mention is actually Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, because that
Because say no more. Just because.
that is the album that made me want to pick up a bass guitar.
That's it, man.
I can say it honestly, that is why I learned bass, because I wanted to learn how to play rock show. I wanted to learn how to play, First Date. That was
Hey,
why
first date on drums, man. That was the same for me, right? How do you play that intro? It's crazy rock show. It's just easy enough that you can play it, but you want to learn how to play it like Travis.
So
it was a great album.
Here I am, 12 years old, walking into Fretworks. Did you guys ever go to Fretworks in Newmarket?
Yeah. How do I know that? It was a music store.
Yeah. So here I am, a 12-year-old kid walking into Fretworks. This is like a professional, music store. They offer great instruction. And I'm walking in, and I want to learn Sum 41, and I want to learn Blink-182. And then, my teacher is an absolute metalhead. You guys know the story. My first song I learned was Schism by Tool.
Steve's favorite drummer.
See? Again.
I'm this, I'm this,
Dana Carey? Is that his name?
Huh?
Drummer Tool?
Oh,
Somebody
maybe.
fact check
Danny.
that. I think that's his name.
Danny Carey?
I don't know.
Dana Carvey.
Dana Carvey. He plays drums in a turtle suit.
No, Andy.
Yeah. That's
Andy,
I wanted to learn how to play an instrument because of that album. That's why it's just.
And that album was so strong too, coming off of again, I mean, I guess there was that live album in between, but coming off of the commercial success that Enema of the State had, to Take Off Your Pants and Jacket was an even bigger success. Like it was so strong when that album came out. And that was from then until 2003, it was Blink-182 was one of the biggest bands in the world.
And now they are again.
There you go.
And that album, like it took so many elements from Enema of the State, but also they were a bit more experimental with that album too. Like you can really see the direction where they were going.
Well, yeah, they had their first. They had "Stay Together for the Kids" on that album. It was their first. I don't. If you could call it a ballad.
Who would have thought that those? I mean, it was a surprise to me anyway to see that, but
Yep.
it worked so well with the album. We just went with it.
Yep. It was good.
Yeah.
Steve, what about you? Did you go?
Yeah,
I went, but I didn't get honorable mentions. So
What's yeah? What's
I'm
your
gonna throw out a couple honorable mentions. Now this one is a little bit off because I couldn't tell you how good the album is itself. I know there are a couple good songs on it, but it had probably the greatest cover of all time on it. Shout out Alien Ant Farm.
yes?
Smooth Criminal. I dare you to put that track on and not be fired up.
I could tell you exactly. Like I remember the music video for it.
Yeah,
That's
even with that out, like the music video was incredible.
it. Also made the American Pie 2 soundtrack.
That was the
Steve.
part of the movie too.
It
Did.
was.
That
It
part
did.
of the movie is the best part too.
I mean, I think we may have to give a little bit of credit to Michael Jackson because the theme of this show seems to be giving credit to people who have done terrible things, allegedly. But you know, it's an incredible track. I mean, Smooth Criminal, the original, was incredible, but this
Of course.
cover is just hit on every
It did.
cylinder. So
It did.
and I also got to give one other shout out. Actually, I'm going to do a couple of shout outs, just talk about each of them quickly because they have nothing to do with this genre really. But I'm going to go with a couple albums that I know we both liked. First of all, or that we all liked. Morning View by Incubus came out in 2001, which is fucking incredible.
Steve, I would accept that into this genre. I would. Yeah, I'd lump that in.
And the other one was White Pony by Deftones.
Deftones. That might be a bit of a stretch, but I'll accept it too.
Especially because I just spent 5 minutes bashing metalheads. But the Deftones, I'm taking it as our own because I love them. They're amazing.
Yes.
All right, boys. We went through a lot. I think Andy brought a very good mix back to the group here. We got a lot more to talk about. We're going to go through the decades, I think, to start of the years. Sorry, not the decades. We've been friends for decades, but we're going to go through a few more years, kind of go through our musical taste over the years. And then, as you guys were talking about, let's go down some side tracks, do some special episodes. I know Jer's dying to get into The Hills, which had its own musical influence.
Guilty pleasure. The way the Hills utilized up and coming bands into their show was pretty cool.
And they always
LC shout out.
Shout out LC.
And they always had it at the bottom what the track was, which I love.
Yes, they did.
A lot of the MTV shows did that.
How many people downloaded those songs based on that? Right?
I know I did.
This guy.
This guy too.
That's it.
Andy, where are we going on Thursday?
So Thursday, we are going to see Sum 41's last concert ever. Is it going to be their last?
I have a feeling they're pretty serious about it.
Me too. If you read Derek's autobiography, you can really see how he really felt like their most recent album, Heaven and Hell, also worth a listen, you guys.
Yep.
He felt
Dopamine. Shout out to the single Dopamine. Incredible song.
Great song.
He really feels like they've accomplished all they've set out to do. They've pushed different genres. They've gone back to their roots. It was actually a double album that they put out. So it's got the metal side and the more poppy punk side. So it's just it's a full circle album, and they've really come a long way. And we will be seeing their last concert ever, and it's going to be great. It's going to be nostalgic. It's going to be fun. It's going to be emotional. It's a hometown show, so
that's what I'm extra excited about is the fact that we're at the final show of the back-to-back in Toronto. I was
number one is actually tonight.
Is it really? Yeah, we're at the final show of the tour, ending in Toronto. I think it's going to be absolutely insane. It's going to be insane. Now, just before we kind of sign off here, we were briefly last week talking about whether or not we think Steve-O, the drummer, is going to make an appearance.
I'm saying yes.
Yes?
I'm saying yes.
Is he going to show up, or is he going to come out and play or sing? Is he going to perform is what I'm asking, I guess.
I think he's going to come out for Pain for Pleasure, because you guys know that him and Derek switch up for that song, right? Derek plays the drums, and Steve comes out and does vocals. So I'm calling that. Anything more than that would be a bonus, would be great, but I'm going to say he comes out for Pain for Pleasure.
Do you know that that song's on their set list? Or are you making an assumption?
It hasn't been, but I think at their final show, I think it will be.
Especially if Steve-O's going to make an appearance.
So,
well, they increased their set time, didn't they, for this last show?
It's going to be like a 2-hour set list or longer. So it could even be longer because it's their last show. It could be longer. So
yeah.
So that's I think he'll make an appearance.
I want him to make an appearance, but see, I don't think they left on bad terms. I know Steve mentioned that last week. I don't think they did either. But I just get the feeling that when he left, he left.
Yeah, he was when he quit Sum 41. It was Derek talks about it in his book a lot actually, and I follow Steve-O. Actually has a really good vlog now on YouTube. You guys should check that out too. He didn't play the drums for over 10 years after he left.
Wow.
So he's just recently started drumming again and putting out really good content. So.
He was not too long ago, within the last year, I believe he was on Brendan Greed's podcast.
He was.
Yeah.
And Steve, you were so influenced by Steve-O, I remember, as a...
Well, just, you know what, he's a great drummer, and him and Travis were, huge influences, but he was a little bit more goofy than Travis, and that's what I love. Like, I love being a dumbass. Yeah. It's so fun. It's so fun.
Steve-O, he was so... Yeah, he was so funny and he really brought such personality to that band. So, yeah, really looking forward to that concert on Thursday.
We'll have to do a follow-up.
Yep.
Even if it's just like 10 minutes.
We'll do a review.
That's it?
We'll do a review. We'll post some bootlegs. We'll just get all illegal up in here. Let's fucking do it. And on that note... Thanks for sticking with us for a year, guys, and we'll see in another, hopefully less than a year, but we'll see.
We'll see in a couple. We'll see in a few weeks.
Soon.
Yeah.